Okay, so I don't know how many people are currently reading Dr. Stone, but it's currently on its 182nd chapter as of recording, and I personally am loving the series so far. But I'm wondering there now, over the last couple chapters, is it going to be ending soon? To get my opinion out of the way, I do think it's going to be ending. I'm nearly 99% sure it's going to be ending quite soon, maybe a year to a year and a half, or a year and a half to 2 years probably. 2 years more likely, because you might extend it a slight bit, you know? I think we have two major arcs before the main arc, if not just like one and then the major arc, because there's not a lot of story left, right? Because if you think about it, they've got the, what's it called, the miasma, or I'm just gonna call it the petrification device. I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest. The petrification device, they've got a bunch of them now, so all they have to do now is figure out entirely how it works, figure out how to use it, and a rocket work, and go to the moon and fucking beat the Y guy, right? That's like the basic thing they have to do now, but there's not much after that, right? Like, I mean, as I was thinking a while ago, they could like have a detour and go to like Europe or something. They could say, oh well, he does something that causes Europe to be affected, so they have to go to Europe to get a material or to figure out what happened or something. The Y-Man could interfere at any point and artificially extend the story, which I wouldn't complain about. More story is good as long as it's well executed, you know. But then they could also like have a twist where it's like, you know, they could have it so the rocket building is an arc in itself, so the way to get to a rocket, which I think it will be, because building a rocket has been a goal for Senku, and that could artificially extend the arc, and that would be awesome. Like, I would be totally down for that. My only problem with that though is Dr. Stone is well acquainted with like skipping the construction, right? Because in the first season, I don't know, I think it was the first 60 so chapters, they kind of showed you all the construction, but then in the middle part they'd skip to the end, right? You get the first part of it, then they'd skip like 6 months until the end of construction, which is good in a story, but to me that's why I think no matter how much emphasis they put on the rocket, it's not going to affect the a year to 2 year time frame I have for the show, right? Or for the manga series, right? But they could extend the rocket building process, and they could even push the Europe thing into it. I don't know a lot about science, but they could say, oh well, this artifact is only available in Europe, for example, and then head off to Europe. Or they obviously have to go back to the village, like Ishigami village at some point, so they do definitely have to do that. They have to go back before they start constructing a rocket, I think. And obviously we still have this arc to finish, which probably has a decent while left in it, because I'm talking about after this arc, right? And obviously if this arc goes on for longer than I think it will, I think it's like coming closer to like the end, like maybe 20 more chapters or 30 chapters or so, because Dr. Stone arcs aren't very very long. They're not like One Piece arcs, you know. So I don't know, man. I think like what they also could do, and I'm not a big fan of this, but I know I was thinking about this the other day, they could extend it after they defeat the Y-Man and turn it into a sci-fi series. Like, have it where, oh, turns out the Y-Man wasn't the bad guy after all, or turns out he moved from the moon when you were on your way or something, and he's on Mars or something. He's figured out a way to colonize Mars. Now, it wouldn't make much sense, especially because Dr. Stone is heavily based in like a scientific, you know, environment. So not having that would be a bit weird, right? I think so. But then they could go sci-fi, and as long as the author does it well, like maybe, oh, something happened, like, oh, the Y-Man did something, moved to Mars, and then now we have to go to Mars, and the whole concept of it is the author constructs a way that he believes we can colonize Mars, and has Senku figure that out, because it'd be interesting, right? Because they've been doing this with the petrification device, where Senku has to adapt to new technologies in the stone world, and that would be interesting too, to see how he would go about it to colonize Mars. I mean, it would be a bit extreme, because it'd be like, oh look, an 18-year-old like 6th year is basically figuring out, oh yeah, this is how you colonize Mars. Like, it's a bit unrealistic, but at the same time, this guy's like a prodigy, like Albert Einstein-esque shit, so I'm gonna let it slide. Especially if Dr. Xenon ends up coming to their side, then they'll have a NASA scientist on top of that, which will make it way more believable in that case. On a side note, are they even allowed to use NASA in a reference? I was thinking about that a while ago. Like, I thought that would get them sued, no? Or maybe because NASA's like a government company, I think. Maybe that's why they can use it. I assume, anyway. They might call it like Nappa or something in the fucking anime or something. I don't know. That would be funny, because they can't use NASA or something. I don't know if they can or not. I'm just making assumptions. Anyway, back on topic. You know, it would be interesting to see that, like him trying to figure out how to colonize Mars so they can actually get to the Y-Man if it turns out he moves, or he like set a decoy or something. That would also extend the series into a very interesting way, I would
would think, if it's done right. Obviously, it would have to be done right. Like, all these options I'm given here would cause a lot of problems if it's done wrong. Like, imagine if they did the sci-fi thing. It could turn into like, oh, well, look, this just turned into the like Boruto version of Dr. Stone, where like you have base shoved into a show that didn't really need it, you know? I think that would suck, personally. But if it's executed well, I think they could do it really well. And the storyteller so far has done a very good job. I really like his work so far. There is another way they could do it, but again, we already had the Stone War, so I doubt this would happen. So like, when everyone's hypothetically revived, right? What are they going to do then? Like, there's obviously going to be conflict, right? Like, political conflict. They could make an arc out of that, where Senku has to adapt and like get around the political conflict that having everyone back would cause. But then at the same time, you have to understand that this is a shonen manga. Like, it's meant for people who are under like 50, you know, so politics ain't going to be very appreciated. I think I would love politics. I'm a big fan of politics in terms of like fictional politics and even real life politics, but on the form of real life politics, sometimes it can get really boring or repetitive, but most of the time it's relatively interesting, especially because it's the, you know, the running of a country and how divisive people get. Now, it's more funny than anything else, because, you know, I don't like to get involved in it, but I like watching it. It's like good popcorn stuff. It's like those people with crime dramas and stuff. I don't know. I feel the same way with fucking politics. But I like it in my shows. I know I like One Piece for its Reverie arc. I really like the Reverie arc and all the politics that was involved with that. I love politics in fiction and in real life as well. It's good fun to just sit back and watch the chaos, bro. It'd be cool to see that in Dr. Stone. But I don't think they'll do that. I think he's not like Oda, right? Oda has a lot of free reign because, oh well, he's like the author of One Piece, right? He got Shonen Jump to stay relevant for the last like decade and a half, right? Or 2 decades and a half, sorry, it's nearly 25 years now. But you see what I mean? Like, the problem with that though is that I don't actually know the author's name, but the author for Dr. Stone can't really do that, right? Because he doesn't have the same amount of pull. So it's a very unlikely scenario of him being able to get the pass to do politics in his series, especially because it's meant for younger people. And honestly, I'm gonna say it, most people don't like politics. Most people who are under the age of 50 don't like politics, you know? I've noticed that personally. But there is another route they could go. Like, there definitely is other routes they can go. They could have it so they could show you, like, they could show them going and reanimating the entire 7 billion people. But I don't think they'll do that either, because the problem with that would be that's 7 million people. How are you going to make an arc out of that? What's most likely going to happen with that would be like, oh well, let's do like the, you know, the way they'll have like flash panels where it's like a page with like 7 or 8 different small panels showing them going across, like a kind of a time skip, but at the same time you see it on page in small bits, like the Dante flashback in Black Clover, where you see him like walking into the kingdom, being in a relationship with someone, all this type of shit. You see different parts of his life in small snippets. I think they might do that like once they get back from the moon, hypothetically. I think that's what they will do. And just to preface, in case people did like not come in here not reading the manga, they're not on the moon, they're not on the way to the moon. Like, alright, it's very obvious that's what they're gonna do, because that's Senku's dream, right? Along with that's where the Y Man is right now. So if they don't do that, it wouldn't make much sense, right? So hypothetically, when they get back from the moon, right, they could do that. They could go on a route where it's like, oh, we decide, let's go to Europe, let's go to South Africa, let's go to Brazil, let's go to Canada, you know, and get all these, Australia and New Zealand, let's go to these places and purify everyone, for lack of a better word, or revive them, for lack of a better word. You know, they could do that, and that'd be very interesting. I'd be very happy to see something like that, but at the same time, it could drag out quite a bit. So I think they're going to do the flash panels, right, where it's just like bam, 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 different images of different continents, and just, you know, going around reviving people. I don't think that's like the epilogue, right? We're not going to see an arc around that, I don't think. For example, what they could do is they could have an entire arc, like before, like let's say instead of going to fight the Y-Man, they decide, alright, let's sit down and let's rebuild society first, right? So they focus on that, and that could be into an arc. Like, so instead of that, they just, like, let's say rebuild NASA, so they have the facilities, rebuild the Wi-Fi, which I think they'll have to do at some point. But I think the Y-Man's close. Like, I really do. I think it's going to end soon, relatively soon. Obviously 1 to 2 years is not always that soon, but you know, I think that soon to me anyway. I'm really excited to see how it plays out though, I gotta be real. And the anime, I like the anime, but I think it has the same problem with One Piece. You know, I can't watch one, so I have to kind of binge it. I think a lot of shows have that problem, but it's real good. I realize I'm getting off topic here, but I just wanted to say how good it was getting right now before we moved on to the other topic. On top of that, like, if you think about this, right, it's not particularly popular. I think it's only like top 10. I think it's just scraping the top 10. again, right? So Shonen Jump aren't gonna force him to like increase its time in the spotlight. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's doing just well enough to where it's popular and it can stay in Jump, and the author can decide what he does with it. So that's another reason I think that it's gonna end when the author wants it, and I think that's a year and a half, 2 years. Again, as I've stated before, they could actually have a World War III scenario, which would also be very interesting. It goes back to the conflict I was talking about earlier with politics in Dr. Stone when 7 billion people are revived. They could have it where like, oh well shit, 7 billion people are revived, a lot of people are angry, a lot of people would be have mental problems now that they didn't have before because they've been in stone for 7 billion years, right? Like, it's not like people are going to be completely fine after that. So you could have like, oh, World War III breaks out, the two superpowers are back, they're a bit disorientated, they just decide to fight. That would be pretty fucking cool, bro, honestly. Oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention was they could totally do the whole Y-Man thing. Like, they could lose to the Y-Man. You know, I don't know what he is, or even if he's a person, it could be an AI or something, could be something real fucking complicated. Like, turns out like, oh, we get an Ultron as a final villain or something, you know? I mean, I don't know. I think the possibility, like, if they lose to the Y-Man, he's gonna be in space, right? So that's gonna just end up with them dying and like going into the fabric of space, right? Now, it could also lead into the sci-fi thing where, oh, there's a civilization on Mars, your man hidden Mars or something, and then bam, alright, that's how they survive because civilians help them or something, right? But if it's on the moon and he's the only one there, they're dead because he'll just take off their masks or take off their fucking astronaut helmets and they're dead, right? And even if they're not, if he leaves them there for long enough, they'll just float up into the fucking blankness of space, like, you know? So I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, so there's not really much they can do because once Senku's achieved his dream, like, that's the end of the show, right? Once he's revived 7 billion people and once he's defeated the Y-Man and gone to the moon, he's fulfilled his ancestors' wishes and fulfilled his dad's dream, you know? Fulfilled his own dream as well. That's going to be the end of the show. This show, I feel, can end in a very satisfying way, and I think Dr. Stone will be more respected when it's finished because a lot of people give it shit right now because, I don't know, it's slow for them to watch week to week because a lot of people watch it week to week, but I caught up with it and it's quite fast paced when you read it, binge it, you know? I was able to binge like 10 chapters very, very quickly, and you'll be reading 10 chapters at a time and catch it up. And I think once it's finished, Dr. Stone's gonna get a slight boost in like its popularity because it's gonna be a nice succinct story if it ends in the next couple of years with like maybe 25 volumes that you can just, you know, you're like getting into anime or you're a big science person and there's nothing there for you, you can just pop in Dr. Stone. It's like 25 volumes long, maybe like 300 chapters, and you're like, yeah, cool, that's good. I think that's the future for this series, like, because I don't think it's gonna last very long after this, which I'm not particularly unhappy about because I want it to be kind of succinct, kind of get its point across, because I don't want it to be artificially bloated like things like Naruto were or Dragon Ball. But that's my opinion on the ending